So in the food and beverage world, the easiest way to factor in your cost. So let's say you want to charge 70% markup, okay? So that's 70% over all your costs that you figured out. And let's say your cost is $100. So therefore, you're going to say, you're talking about 100%, 70% markup. So the leftover is the 30%. Okay, so the 30% is what it's costing you to make whatever it is you're making.
Welcome to the Charcuterie Launch Lab podcast, where passion meets profit. If you've ever dreamed of turning your love for charcuterie, or food of any kind, into a thriving online business, well then you're in the right place. We're Andrea and Patty, the Grazing Biz Sisters. With over 60 years combined experience as a chef and digital marketer, we have walked in your shoes starting our own online businesses. We'll share all of our tips, advice, struggles, and best strategies to help you launch and grow your own online foodie business with ease. The Charcuterie Launch Lab is a space for all food creators and entrepreneurs just like you. Let's dive in and get your yummy business launched online, one board at a time. Hey, welcome back to the Charcuterie Launch Lab podcast. It's Andrea and Patty here. Hi.
Hello.
Cue the clapping.
Yeah.
Because we got clapping. Our whole audience back here. Anyway, hey, girl, how's it going? What's happening?
Hanging in there on a rainy day in
Yeah, it's
northern
raining
Arizona.
in Arizona. What the heck?
Yeah.
That's a
I'll
nice
take it.
change. No kidding.
Mhm.
It is a nice change for sure. Okay, so what did we decide? Today, we have so many questions about people asking on how do we price our boards. So we want to spend a little time today talking about pricing. So we've got a number of things we want to cover on this. And Andrea does most of this. So I'm going to kind of just do the questioning on this because I think I'm going to, just from what I know people are asking, what kind of questions that we're getting, right? So I'm going to be the questioner and Andrea is going to be the questionee. So mostly.
I'll do my
Okay.
best.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
do your best. All right. So we have to start at the basics, right? The basics are we have to price our items that we're purchasing. We need to figure out, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on sourcing and that, because that's like a whole nother topic for another podcast. But I feel like we need to kind of understand that it starts there, right? We need to determine how much are we spending first so that we can determine pricing for the rest of it. So what's your tips on figuring out costs and how much is a good cost and where to, there's one thing about where we're going to go get all this stuff, but pricing it and actually spending for it, the ingredients. You have any feedback you can give on, when we're determining how much we're going to spend?
Right. Well, first you got to have, if you have your board set up, however, you have to know and try to be consistent about your boards. One of the tough things that I find people struggle with is trying to keep the boards consistent. So granted, you are sort of limited by the seasonality of maybe your garnishes and things, but for the most part, the board should stay the same. So, with the meats and the cheese and the crackers and whatever, like try to keep it at that same, so it looks the same for small, medium, and large all the time, because, and I know that sounds boring, but the reality is that's how you're going to control your cost.
Oh.
If you kind of go all over the place and you do something different every time you deliver a small board, first of all, your branding is strange because people aren't going to recognize it. So if you're going to make certain garnishes, make that your own, make it so people see that and go, oh, that's, Chef Andrea's, because I've seen that before. That just helps with the branding part of it. But first figuring out, so I've said this before, when we go back to sourcing, it comes down to creating your menu based on what you can get where you are. So you're not running to 100 different stores and waiting for orders to come in. That's really where it starts.
Yeah.
When you're figuring
so
out
so what I'm understanding is if you have consistency across the different boards, you know how much you're spending. It's easier to determine how much you need to spend if you're not going out and going, okay, today I'm going to go buy this kind of salami instead of this one and put it on the board. And now you're spending a little more. If you always know that you're going to put these certain things on the different boards. So let's talk about that though, because we're building a website for somebody right now, and she's got three different boards, artisanal 1, 2, and 3, and then she's got three different sizes. Okay,
Hmm.
so what are we seeing the difference between the sizes if they're going to be consistent? You're adding different meats or additional meats onto the ones that you have. So you have a small board, then the medium board. So the difference between the small and the medium board would be just additional meats and cheeses mostly.
Usually it's an additional meat or maybe more. So in my
Yeah.
case, I usually do more of whatever's already on there. So
Okay.
if you have
Yeah.
two different meats, you have salami and ham, black forest ham. Okay, let's use those two. You're just going to add more. So if, so you get so that the board is bigger. You don't want to necessarily add more. Well, and I take that back because as the board gets bigger, you can add more things.
Sure.
But it's all relative to try to make it again about being consistent
Consistent. Yeah.
versus
Okay.
versus
So I know we've talked
making it
about
up every time.
right. And I know we've talked about this too, but yeah, on average, like we're looking at how much meat and cheese and, let's just start with the meat and cheese per, how much ounces per head. Is that how you figure it out based on how many people are coming to the event or how many you're serving? Let's assume these aren't single servings. Well, I guess it doesn't matter if it's single
Right.
servings or you got 100 people. It's going to be
Right, it
somewhat
doesn't
similar.
matter. So,
Okay.
a lot of times too, when you're putting that in perspective, first of all, if you do the small, medium, large, extra large, and you have it labeled to, this is going to feed X number of people,
Hmm.
and you know that because you've already figured this out. So you're going to
Yeah.
go with about
Ahead
two
of time.
ounces of any given thing is going to be 1 to 2 ounces. So 1 ounce is on garnishes and other random things that are what I like to call fillers, and then 2 to 3 ounces of all the other things per person. So again, once you have that figured out and you do your small, medium, large, extra large board, you're kind of leaving it up to the customer to say, I only need, even though I have 200 people, I only need to feed 50 people on that board because I have however many more hors d'oeuvres.
Food.
Or
Yeah. That's something to think about,
so
say,
you
at a
don't want to get
wedding.
nutty with it. I see some of these grazing boards. The grazing boards are amazing setups, but the first thing that comes out of my brain is like, how much
Waste.
waste was there?
Yeah.
Because you can only take so much. Granted, the customer is going to get all that waste, but they're not going to be happy if they end up with 300 people worth of leftovers,
That's a really
So,
good point you bring up as far as what else is being served at that event. And so that you can
mhm.
determine, do you really need to load up and put that much on there? Because it's just going to end up in the trash, or people are going to just take it home and you've just bought all this for people to take home. So
Right.
makes
And
a
I
lot
and
of
I
sense.
when I'm consulting with people, it's easy to say you want to sell the biggest board and you want to sell the most amount of money, make the most amount of money, but you also don't want that backfiring on you because if you say, "Oh, well, you're going to need this $500 board," and then they actually don't need it, they're not going to trust you the next time
The next
around,
time.
and they're not
Yeah.
going to suggest you to someone
Right.
else the next time around.
Right.
So be careful about overpricing and overestimating what people should eat. You're better weighing on the other side and keeping that customer for life.
Right. And so while we're on that subject, though, because of the way our food prices are in the world today, we were just talking
Yeah.
about the price of eggs right before we got on here. And now most of us aren't going to put eggs on our things mostly, unless you're doing an egg board, which I don't
Unless you're
think
doing
that's going
like,
to happen today.
I don't think
Um,
so, but
but I think I actually have seen some of the eggs on it. But anyway,
I'm
I
sure
guess
At Easter, I could see that, but
maybe at Easter. But I guess my question is that you got to keep I'm assuming, I guess this is a question or a comment. You got to keep an eye on what you're spending because what you're going to charge later is going to come into play, obviously, based on that expense. And if today this salami is this much, but
hmm
tomorrow it's gone up. So you got to keep an eye on that, right? I mean, I'm assuming.
hmm
Just don't place it, okay, I'm going to the small board's going to be $120. I'm going to leave it at that for life. That doesn't make sense, right? But
No,
and it's
you're always
okay.
evaluating. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
most of the things won't drastically change. We're just in a weird situation with eggs, but most of the stuff you choose won't drastically change.
Okay. Yeah.
When they do, then you change your
You
prices.
just change your
Everything.
prices based on that, which
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a minute on what kind of pricing we're
right,
looking
right.
at.
Okay.
What else goes into the boards or the pricing that you, as far as the expenses? Tell us about that. What other expenses other than the actual ingredients and, okay, let's just say the food ingredients, right? So we've got the
Okay.
food ingredients that are, okay, we know that. We can get that figured out by just going to the store or wherever we're buying our stuff. What else
Hmm.
are we considering in this pricing as far as
So
what we're
depending
spending?
on, I have said in the past, if anybody's listened to our podcast, that I do disposable only unless somebody asks me to set something up on one of their boards. Maybe they got something special they want it set up on. But I do everything disposable. So the cost of the tray, which I use bamboo trays from Amazon or Temu, depending on, I kind
Where you
of
can get it.
juggle those around. And then all of my utensils are disposable, like the metal, plastic, but metal looking kind.
Yeah.
And I get those from Dollar Tree. So those are all, I'm consistent again about creating that consistency. One of the reasons I love Dollar Tree is because it's never going to be more than $1.25
At least for
for
now.
for now. It could be $1.50 by the end of this year. I have no
Yeah, who
idea, but
knows?
it's right now it's $1.25. You get 12, 10 or 12, depending on what you're getting in a
Uh-huh.
packet of, let's say, the little tiny tongs. I'm sorry, take that back. Those come in 6 packs. But the point is, that's never going to
You don't.
change. So
Yeah.
that price is the same. But anyway, so you have that, and then you have your gas.
Okay.
And of course, you do want to inflect your time, but for the most part, if you're a single proprietor like I am, my time is the business. So I do factor in going, that's going to take me an hour, but I don't
Hmm.
say I'm going to charge $30, $40 for that hour. Sometimes I will, but most of the time I don't. I've already
It's
factored
kind of
in
built
all
in.
the costs, and then I have a determining percentage that I want that markup to be,
Okay.
which in my case is 80%.
Okay.
Did I answer that question? Because
Well, I
I
think
know
we're
I was
still missing
rambling.
some costs. So we're talking,
So
do
you have
you,
gas.
okay.
You have gas. You can charge your overhead if you have rent. So you're going to factor in a percentage of your rent if you're paying for your kitchen.
Utilities that
Any
go
of
with,
your utilities that go
even
along
if,
it. Usually you don't have utilities if you're renting because you're renting a space, but it depends, it depends on how
well,
your business is set
if you're
up.
working from home, I mean, I've been working from home for 25 years. I have an office space that I write off.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
give them what my electric bill is for the entire house, and it's based
Right.
on the square footage of my office. So
Right.
they get it, and then they know how big my office space is. So the thing about it when you're working from home, you definitely want to talk to your CPA about this, but because I don't know exactly how it works, because in our case, we're supposed to only use our office for our work. And if I have something in the closet back here, it's not related. I should really not supposed to do that. But you're using your kitchen all the time for
Right.
your own personal use. So how that works, totally talk to your. But I gotta think that you should be able to write off some of your electric bill and your gas bills if you have a gas stove,
Yeah, you
depreciation
can.
on
It's all,
your
yeah, just like as if you're in a regular business, a regular kitchen business, it's all the same.
right. So what we just want to make sure is that you understand all of those costs can come into play. Insurance, whatever you're
Yeah,
paying
that's a
for
good one.
taxes, if you're adding taxes, do you add tax to this? If you want to do that. When we're talking about insurance for your vehicle and not just and
Hmm.
portions of your house if you're working out of your home or wherever. So just I guess make sure that you sat down and figured all of this out. You can just easily put it on an Excel spreadsheet and figure it out, and have an accountant help you with all of this to get it set up so that you have somewhere to go to put this information in so you have it, right? Okay, so
Yep.
we've got all of that. Now let's talk about how do we price it. I mean, I'm not gonna, we'll talk about the calculation in a minute, but if I'm somebody who's just starting out and I want to really get my name out there, does it make sense for me to drop my price ridiculously low and then try to take over the market because I'm only charging, like 10% over cost? right? Does that
You
make
know,
sense? I mean, let's talk, I guess the psychology of pricing. What, tell me what your thoughts are on that.
yeah, I think that first of all, you need to do your I know we're going to talk about that too, but your competition, who else is doing it? What are they charging, versus what you can make off of it? Sometimes I look at some people like, I'm always looking at competition because that's how you know where to start
Okay.
with what you want to charge. So
What you
you're
can get
kind
away
of
with.
yeah, what you can get away with, what people are buying. And then I even look at people that are not necessarily in my neighborhood. I just like to see what people are doing and, get good ideas of what I think will work for my business. But the reality is it starts with what are they charging? But do I want to lowball? Not necessarily. Lowball doesn't necessarily mean anything. What's more important is you going out and shaking hands and kissing babies, as I like to call it, because you go to markets, you give away things to maybe local businesses like real estate agent offices
Hmm.
um, and do some pop-ups in your neighborhood. It doesn't take much effort to do those things. That's how you get your name out there. So then you don't have to lowball.
Okay.
I don't suggest lowballing anyway, simply because if you're doing good work, it's going to take over on its own. The quality of what you're doing is
Right. And
all
I
you
guess
need to
that
do.
that brings me back to what I think is that if you go really low, people might associate that with not with lower quality as well.
Hmm.
And if you want
Hmm.
to start out of the chute like that, I'm not sure that's a great idea. So
Right.
you're gonna attract what you're doing price wise.
Hmm.
So, and I'll just give you an example. My son is a chef. He was working for a local company, which will remain nameless. But they were charging, I kid you not, $700. He told me for like very small, not very large boards, and I couldn't tell you exactly the size of them. But he was shocked when he started that she was able to get away with it. She was able to get
Yeah.
away with it because where he worked was in a high-end district of the metropolitan area here in Scottsdale. So that's, if you can get away with it, well, then dang, okay, if you can get away with
Hmm.
it. But
Hmm.
on the other hand, how much business did she lose because she overpriced and then they got out there and people weren't happy? I don't know. I'm not sure he knew all that, but I guess you got to keep all that in mind when you're deciding on that. Now, if you have a flat rate, you're going to charge over whatever your cost is, which we're going to talk about next. You did bring up making sure that you're researching and what are people in your area charging that are also doing this, which I think is really, really key. So now let's
Hmm.
talk a little bit about that. Well, not a lot. It's kind of important. How do we figure out pricing? And what's that markup look like? And can you give us kind of a mathematical, easy mathematical thing how we would do that? Hey, 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 Charcuterie Launch Lab listeners. I've got some exciting news for you that you do not want to miss. We're launching the free webinar bootcamp that we're calling the Charcuterie Business Bootcamp. Turn your charcuterie passion into profits in less than 2 weeks. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale your charcuterie business, this bootcamp is packed with actionable strategies to help you monetize your passion quickly and effectively. In this webinar bootcamp, you'll learn the important things to consider when starting your business. We'll both be here to teach you everything from what you need to know about licensing, health certification and insurance, to creating your menus, pricing for profits and branding, to how and where to create your online presence with an easy-to-build website, automatically taking orders, and growing it through innovative marketing with or without ads. Spaces are limited, so don't wait. Head on over to grazingbiz.com/bootcamp. That is grazingbiz.com/bootcamp to reserve your spot today. Transform your love for charcuterie into a thriving online business. The bootcamp is free, so sign up today. We can't wait to see you there.
Yeah. So in the food and beverage world, the easiest way to factor in your cost. So let's say you want to charge 70% markup. Okay. So that's 70% over all your costs that you figured out. And let's say your cost is $100. So therefore, you're going to say, so the other part of so you're talking about 100%. 70% markup. So the leftover is the 30%. Okay. So the 30% is what it's costing you to make whatever it is you're making. So you're going to take
I don't have it on paper.
$100 that it costs divided by 30% or 0.30 will
Okay.
give you a recommended markup of 70%. So that comes out to $333, just so everybody knows. So that would be the charge that you would charge before taxes.
Okay, so let's
Hope I made
clarify.
sense with that.
We got $100 in expenses, and we added all those expenses up we just talked about. However you want to figure that out. We have $100 in expenses, and then you know that you want to mark it up 70% over cost, which is your expenses. So 70 plus 30 equals 100%. So what you're going to do is take your $100 that you invest that you've determined this expense was and divide it by that 0.30. You're not dividing it or timesing it by 0.7. You're just taking the difference. So if you want it 70% over cost, it's the extra, which is 30, divided by 30%. In this case, you got 100 divided by 0.3. That's it.
That's it.
0.30, right? Which is 0.3. Okay, so that gives you what you should sell the board for. Okay. So, because we're not on a screen, we had to kind of walk you through that. So hopefully that makes sense. But you can charge anything you want. So I guess that's the bottom line. I've heard people charging 100% over.
Yeah. From that point is where you look at it going, oh, that seems kind of low for what they're getting. So maybe you jack it up a little bit. I will tell you that the way I typically work things is I shoot for 80% markup. So I'm usually around 15, 20% cost. And then, so therefore you end up in the $400 range for, $100 cost thing. But so let's say you have one item that just sells a ton. Let's say it's the small international board. You know what? You can jack that up a little $10, $20 more because you sell more of it. So those 3 board sizes would be a little bit more expensive because that's the one that people just generally want. That's the one they want. So if you sell more of it, again, you're
charge a little bit more.
Yeah, you're going to charge a little bit more because you can. I mean, why not? But, again, being careful about it. That's just how in the food and beverage industry, that is how it works. Okay. So the more popular the item typically ends up being a little more expensive.
So we've talked about this before when you're creating your menus and figuring out what you're going to offer. So, you get it on your website, which of course, don't forget, we can help you with all of that. But our goal really is not to have a zillion different options. We just maybe have one good solid board that you add a little more on and have 3 different sizes just to get yourself started, right? You don't have to have all, 10 different versions of these things because you'll get overwhelmed for one. Okay. So if that's the case now, if it's a birthday or an anniversary, or we want, add something. So what do you suggest? We have a whole separate menu that's specifically for birthdays? I mean, you can, right? But do you need to?
You can, but, I think personally, I think it's just too much information for any customer to take in.
Yeah.
It's easier to do it as an upsell. So they get an international board and then they want happy birthday
stuff added
decor on it or whatever. So you add that, like we just went through Super Bowl. Today is Valentine's Day. So you can design those things, go to your Dollar Tree or wherever and get a bunch of things to make it festive.
Right.
So that would be a markup. In my case, that's going to be $25 more. Okay. So because you want, it depends on the size of the board, but for, let's say, a medium board, it's going to be $25 extra to add that stuff. And a lot of people love it. And I'll be honest, a lot of people will also just add their own crap. You get there and then you drop it off and they do their own thing with it, which is, you can't stop that from happening. But offer it as an upsell. Okay. Always upsell.
And I'm going to go back to that pricing thing one, because I did have a question I forgot to ask you about. If would I charge if I was doing this and I was going to go and actually spend hours setting up a big table, wouldn't that, you'd have to make sure you work that price into that, right? And so you might charge 70% above on everything else you do, but on a table like that, because you got to be there for hours or whatever, maybe you don't, depending on how you're doing it. Either way, you got to put it together, whether you do it on boxes. I've seen where they've put them in boxes, like big cake boxes, and just slide them on out, which I think is amazing, great way to do it. you build them at home or wherever your office is or wherever you're doing it, and then just take them over there and slide them off, and they're in there and
Yeah, I've
everything's
seen
all
that
set
too.
up instead of
Yeah.
standing there building it. If you were in a
Yeah.
rush, that would be so hard to do if you
Well,
knew
you
that
always just let's stop there and just say you always want to have everything as prepped as you can. If you're making roses, don't make them on site.
oh
You know,
gosh, I
do
couldn't
do it all at home and put them in a container so you're just plopping them all over,
right, right. And
where they
again,
need to
I mean,
go.
you got to know your cottage laws to be able to do things wherever
For
you need
sure.
to do them, but we're not getting into that one
Yeah,
today.
for sure.
But
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
okay, so those add-ons and upsells, other things we could add on and upsell could be different other kind of ingredients, such as maybe I want to make my own handmade chicken livers or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah. Or they
pate.
want a more expensive cheese that maybe isn't readily available,
Hmm.
everywhere, or it is available, but it just happens to be a very expensive one. Some of those stinky running cheeses from France, they can be pretty expensive and they do sell them at Trader Joe's and Aldi and places like that,
Yeah.
but they are typically triple or, even
It's a
quadruple
way
the
to
price
make.
of something else.
Yeah, but what I like about that, it's a way to make earn more money because
Hmm.
maybe it doesn't cost you really that much to purchase it, but you can make it add more to the value and of the
Hmm.
board
Yeah,
and then
it's what's
charge
called
more.
value added. Value
Value.
added is what
Okay.
we call that.
Nice. Okay. Good. I was right on the I was on right on. I'm starting to learn.
You were. You're starting to get the hang of it.
Um, okay, so what about you talked briefly about delivery? Should we charge extra delivery fees or should we just include it in the price?
So I see that in my neck of the woods, I can see people charging delivery fees and others not personally,
Mhm.
as long as they're staying within, I have like, a tri-city area here. As long as they're in that tri-city area, it's included in the price. I'm like most other people. I want to know that there isn't anything added when you're totaling things up. I hate that when all of a sudden now you got a $50 or $75 charge.
Yeah.
Now, I live in northern Arizona. I have had people ask to get something delivered to Sedona, which is kind of silly because they have a bunch of people over there, but maybe they don't like them. I don't know what the deal is. I don't ask. But I will charge $50 to go that much
Yeah.
further.
Well, that makes sense.
So it just depends, you can have that as a side thing, outside of the delivery, it's X amount of dollars for X number of miles,
That
you
makes
know.
total sense. Yeah, that's a good
Mhm.
idea. What about pricing for holidays, like at high demand times? If it's extra, we know we're going to be busy on Valentine's Day, which happens to be
Yeah.
today, as you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you charge more, or does it make sense to charge more on high demand holidays like that?
Well, again, that's going to fall into, if you're doing it right, it's going to fall into your upsell area. If you have a system like I have, which we have, I have a calendar and
Hmm.
I only wanted to deliver 3 today. So the 3 that got it, great.
Yeah,
Everybody else, I
totally up
have
to
a
you.
situation where, yeah, everybody else is going to have to go to Fry's or
Right.
Kroger.
Go to the
So
grocery store. Good
or
luck on you.
go to Costco. I don't know. But my point is, so the upsell part, I try not to get involved with too many decision making. People don't like to make decisions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that do, but they don't like it. So just make it easy for them
It's funny you
and
say
do
that
that
because I
upsell.
remember when our kids were little and we'd go over to Toys R Us, which is non-existent, at least locally here is, and I would go in there and get so overwhelmed about all the stuff. I like just going to Target because there wasn't a biggest choice
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah.
kids'
Yeah.
toys. But it's like that because people will get overwhelmed. I have that problem in my world because I sell digital downloads for real estate agents too. And I have too many offers, and I think their heads start to spin off because I'm trying to help them by making up all these things for various different
Right.
types of leads they might get. But yet
Hmm.
they end up contacting me and they're all their heads spinning off because they don't understand what all these things are. And they don't want to read. And that's
They
unfortunate. They don't
don't.
want
They
to.
don't.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
So let
uh,
me just say that people that typically hire anybody to do their catering for you, they either don't want to cook or they don't cook or whatever the case may be. So they're willing to pay for it.
right.
It's just the difference between but they don't want to make that many decisions. They want to be
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this, and this.
Don't give them too much, and then
Yeah.
you'll probably be better off. But
Yes.
although I will say on a holiday, oh, because we're seeing a lot of those heart-shaped boards, you can
Hmm.
see them all over in all the groups that we're in. And I don't know if you did any of those this holiday, but you got those are like kind of special limited edition holiday boards that they created that they don't offer all year long. That you wouldn't
Hmm.
necessarily have all that stuff, that you would give to every holiday, although you could, I
Right.
guess, for each holiday. So that would make sense that you could charge more premium price for something like that because, there's a demand for those, right?
Right.
So,
And I'm not buying, when I do those, like today, I'm not buying a heart-shaped board, for
no,
example. I'm
yeah,
just shaping the thing with the same amount of ingredients and maybe a few little cookies and this and that, but for garnish, but everything is shaped like a
cheap,
heart versus
right.
buying the actual equipment to make that work.
Yeah, how
Because
easy is that?
you don't want
Yeah,
all this equipment sitting around either. So like for Super Bowl, it's shaped like a football, you
yeah,
know?
right.
So that's
What you put, how you
work.
put things on the board, basically,
Hmm.
which I've seen
Hmm.
the cheeses like the brie or the brie that has a heart shape cut in it, and they put like, what did I see? Pomegranate seeds and stuff that they
Oh
put
yeah, yeah,
inside, which
yeah.
is kind of cool. They put like a cookie cutter down and sprinkle. Like, what a great idea! A great idea.
Yeah, it's not hard. Or you can just even just take a bunch of, so this is what I do. I cut a bunch of cheddar cheese into heart shapes, and they're kind of the garnish that goes around
Yeah.
the board.
Right.
And,
And you can get
so
those cookie cutters that are the shape of letters and numbers and that kind of stuff.
I
So you're
think I
not,
bought mine on Amazon,
yeah,
And
yeah,
once you
easy.
purchase it, it's not, you have it forever. And then they come in different sizes, so it's
Right.
not, can make different sizes.
Okay, well, this
So
is
anyways,
really good stuff. I
got
just have
sidetracked
one
on
other
that one.
thought. Wondering that does it make sense to offer discounts or promotions or loyalty type offers to people that come back, like bring you business or refer you
Hmm.
business over and over
Absolutely.
again? Yeah.
Hmm. You want to
So
reward people for coming back and for sending people your way.
love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I do it
Mm-hmm.
all the time. The real estate agents is a really good example.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter works for a title company, and I go over periodically and just give them a small board on a Friday if I have leftovers. That's kind of what I do. So take them over there. They've already been paid for, and I give them to them, and then my card is there, and the real estate agents are coming in going, "Oh, where'd you get this? Blah blah blah."
Yeah.
So a lot of business comes from there.
Love it. Well, I wanted to let everybody know that if you are kind of curious about wanting to get a better pricing thing, we do offer a free charcuterie calculator that you can get to by going to grazingbiz.com/earn with cheese. Earn with cheese. It's grazingbiz.com/earn with cheese. And we've got a free calculator that our very smart brother and Andrea put
Mhm.
together on an Excel spreadsheet. And it's really cool because you know how much things cost in your area. You can put in how many people are going to show up, and then the pricing of, the cost of all the ingredients. And then it'll automatically figure out how big your table needs to be or your board needs to be. And then if you just go down there and say, I want to charge 70% over cost, it'll automatically do it for you. So make sure you tap into that. Also, we have the replay of our recent boot camp, which you can always get to we did a free boot camp on teaching you guys how to get your business started and get it online. So make sure and check that out at grazingbiz.com/bootcamp now. That's grazingbiz.com/bootcamp now. We are here to help you guys all the way through this process. I don't know that there's many people out there that are doing what we're doing. We're really excited to be here to share our
Yeah.
knowledge. For those of you who don't know, I don't know a lot about what Andrea knows, and she doesn't know a lot about what I know. But when we put our heads together, what I know is about marketing and getting your business online and how to get the world to know about you, and to get repeat business and all of that. So when we put our heads together, we're not so bad. We're, not for a couple of old
Yeah.
bags.
Yeah. I try not to scare people off
I
with
know. Well, you want to scare people off, but let's have mom on once.
I know, our mother, poor mom.
God bless her.
Uh, I
No,
know.
she's
I
good.
love her.
She's
We
good.
wouldn't be where we are without her. That's the thing.
No, we wouldn't. If you want to know what she looks like, just look at me, only I got longer hair. So, actually, yeah, we got a nice combination. Our mother's really actually a nice looking woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a combination of the two of us here. Anyway, we're so glad you guys hung out with us today. Make sure you come
Yes.
back, tell everybody. If you like this, leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up wherever you're at. It would be nice. Subscribe, follow us everywhere you're at. Depending on where you're at, we're on YouTube now. We just got on YouTube this week. Yay.
Yay.
We are our official business, and it's pretty fun to help people out. And we're going to just keep giving you more free help everywhere we can. And if you need more help, you know where to find us.
Yes.
All of the info is in the show notes here, so make sure that you check all that out and let us know what else we can talk to. If
Yeah,
you have
we're
any
gonna have
idea,
the
yeah.
we'll have the websites and all that stuff in the show notes. So
Yeah, you can get to all of that. And if you have any comments or any ideas of things you'd like us to talk about, because we could be here for days, coming up with all kinds of things, definitely let us know, because we'd love to just put it in the comments, and we'd love to help you and have a chat about it on one of our next podcasts. So,
yeah.
all right,
All
sister,
right.
happy Valentine's Day. I love you. We'll see you next time, everybody. Come on
Okay.
back.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. See you later.